There's an area of international structuring that few people talk much about and few people have a deep understanding of. I think it's common to see people out there who are service providers who will try and sell you a residency in UAE, or might try and form a company for you in Seychelles or BVI or whatever that is. But an area that very few of them have much expertise at all. I mean, they generally don't have lots of expertise in sort of the consequences of those things, but they can execute them for you. And so they're pretty mass marketed, so you see them a lot. But the thing that they can't get around, or can't do particularly well, and is really, really important, are trusts. And so today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some common misconceptions about trusts. I'll discuss a little bit what both they are. I've done some videos on this in the past. But they're a super powerful instrument, and probably a lot of people, at least as you start to build a reasonable amount of wealth, should be thinking about trusts. And I'll explain to you a bit about why that is as well. So let's dive in. Before we do, if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. Welcome, I'm Michael from Offshore Citizen. If this is your first time here, thank you for being here. I appreciate your support. We are some of the foremost international tax and relocation specialists. So if you're interested in help with figuring out what is the best solution for you in terms of optimizing your tax, relocating, protecting your assets, doing international banking, setting up companies, all that kind of stuff, we can help you with this, figuring out what the best solution is for you, as well as our team can implement it for you. So please reach out to us. You can book a call with me, calendly.com/Michael-Rosmer. There's a link in the description below, or you can send a message through our website, offshorecitizen.net, and converse with our team there. So let's dive in. First of all, just what is a trust? Now, I think the basic message that I wanted to have, and I was triggered to make this video based on, is this concept that trusts are not fungible. So what do I mean by that? Well, what I frequently hear people say is they'll call up and they'll say well, where should I register the trust? And the thing about a trust is that a company is a company, sort of. Okay, so whether you have one or another limited company, a limited company is sort of a limited company. A trust is not a trust, okay? A trust is much more like an agreement than a legal entity. Very, very important to understand that, okay? So trusts are not fungible. Just because you have a trust in Jersey and I have a trust in Jersey does not mean that this is at all equivalent. This can be completely, vastly different, okay? Whereas if you have a company in Jersey and I have a company in Jersey, chances are it's more or less the same thing. So what is a trust? A trust is a common law instrument. This is important to note because most of the world is not on common law. Most of the world is on civil law, and in some cases Sharia law, and a couple blends and variations in there. So a bunch of countries don't have a concept of trusts. Now, we'll touch on that just a bit in a second, but for this reason, it's kind of foreign to the legal system of much of the world. It is essentially a relationship which it takes place between three parties: the settlor or grantor, who is the person who sets up the trust. They're the person who takes a series of assets and they transfer them to a trustee, who's the person who takes care of those assets on their behalf for the benefit of the third party, who's the beneficiary. Okay, so it's sort of, I want to have assets for somebody over there, and I come to you and I say, hey, could you please take care of these for me in order to pass to them in such and such circumstances. This is governed by something called the trust deed. The trust deed outlines the terms that you want to go based on, and you can put practically anything in a trust deed. A trust deed is an extremely flexible instrument. Now, it does vary country to country. You have, for example, something called star trusts in Cayman Islands, which is very, very flexible. In some places, it's a little bit less flexible. But the bottom line is you can have a lot of nuance in there. And that's why I'm saying they're not fungible. And because of this nuance, it means there are very different tax consequences. There are very different asset protection consequences. There are very different operational consequences, etc. And this could be good or bad, I guess, right? It means that when you're doing a trust, you want to do it well. So I see people who sell a pre-made off-the-shelf trust. This is a stupid idea, okay? You should never, ever buy some sort of a $2,000 off-the-shelf trust. It defeats the whole purpose of the trust. The whole purpose of the trust is that you can think it through deeply and really craft the trust language around your objectives, which can include things like tax, inheritance, asset protection, just contingencies in life, how you want to use money, things that you care about, charitable purposes that you value, et cetera, et cetera. There's just so many things you can do with this trust. It is, in a sense, a deferred gift, okay? And so if you look at, I was mentioning earlier, a lot of countries don't have a concept of trust. Spain, for example, what ends up happening in those cases is they have to look and figure out, well, how do we treat these trusts given that we don't have a trust? And so in the case of Spain, the way that they've established this in case law, I'm just using Spain as an example, you have to go through country by country, and that's why you talk to somebody like us, is because we go through and do this. They view it as a gift, and they try and figure out, okay, when was the gift completed? Is it, kind of, the gift hasn't been given yet, or the gift has been given and, it's going on the other side? And that has different tax consequences for it on one side versus the other. And you can play with that. There's all sorts of fancy things you can do there if you're willing to kind of delve into the nuances and plan it accordingly. You can take advantage of, as a result, sort of inheritance. So this can help with like one of the really common ways that they're used in, say, the US is to bypass probate and things like that. Sometimes you have situations where you want to avoid the transfer of property from one party to another. So there is no property transfer because it's held by the same instrument consistently. You may want to do something where you say, okay, I want my future generations, like from an asset planning, legacy, succession perspective, you might say, well, I want to ensure that multiple generations of my family, my kids, my grandkids, my great-grandkids are able to have money for education, money for healthcare. I don't want them to be left destitute. You can do that through a trust, right? So lots and lots of uses for these things. This being said, you do need to have like a fairly sophisticated infrastructure around just planning them, and then B, implementing them to make sure it's okay. Because, you need a trustee, and the trustee has to therefore understand how to act in certain circumstances according to your desires, and, then you have to pay those people and so on and so forth. So it's not a great thing in most cases for somebody who has very little money. It is worth noting that in some countries they've kind of, like in Australia, they kind of do a trust company version. So people will be like, oh, I have a trust. And it's like, well, yeah, but it's not really like what we're talking about in some of these other cases. So you do have to understand that the word can be used in a little bit of a different way. But that being said, it is highly, highly useful. So if you're interested in trusts, you're interested in learning how they can be useful to you, interested in maybe applying them in your life, etc., please reach out to us. You can book a call with me, as I was mentioning, or better yet, send a message through our website and converse with our staff and see if there's something that might work well for you, and we will see how you can help you. Put any comments you have below. I will look forward to seeing them, and we'll see you on the next video.